My name's Max Gagliardi, and this is the Talk Energy Podcast. If you're watching this video, take a moment, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, or you can follow me on your favorite podcast app, which I'd really appreciate. This episode was filmed live at the Faena Hotel in Miami Beach for the Bitcoin 2021 conference. And we had a special guest host, JP Warren, who made it happen. JP, thank you. I wanted to film a podcast. You made it a reality. You even set up the guests for me. So I'm going to give all the credit to you for this episode because without you, man, this wouldn't have happened. This episode's guest is Laura Pommer, the CEO of Energy Funders, where she's building the world's largest online digital marketplace to invest in oil and gas properties. This episode's filled with discussions about the future of capital investing in oil and gas, about how Energy Funders is disrupting a traditional industry by digitizing the process and letting individuals like you and me invest in our own oil and gas wells. And lastly, we talk about Bitcoin, how we got here and understanding it, and the future of Bitcoin in the intersection with the oil and gas industry. Hope you enjoy the show.
I think we're live here. It doesn't matter if you can see them. This is guerrilla marketing. Yeah. This is guerrilla marketing. You got to throw in your equipment where it works and go from there. So
should I check? I can check on my phone real quick.
Yeah, check and see if we're pulling up on LinkedIn, but I think I've not done anything on LinkedIn Live.
To clarify, this is your first LinkedIn Live.
It's the first LinkedIn Live and it's the first live Talk Energy podcast where I have guests. I've done like a stream by myself live, but I've not done the with guests and also I would say a guest host.
Oh yeah, we're on. It's going.
There we go.
We're live. Hello everyone.
All right. Welcome to Talk Energy. We've got a special episode here live from Miami Beach at the Faena Hotel. We are here for the Bitcoin 2021 conference, and I've got a guest host, JP Warren.
Hello everyone. My name is JP Warren. I previously was the host of Around the Rotary podcast. Now I'm here in Miami figuring what Bitcoin's out. I'm glad to see actually Max in person. Max and I have been talking for a couple months now, and now we've been friends, internet friends for a long time. Now it's good getting in front of you in person.
Right.
So cheers to that, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a
Laura here, the CEO of Energy Funders.
Hey, y'all.
Has come on, and we're going to talk about Energy Funders and what you guys are doing. We're also going to talk some about Bitcoin. I think just kind of all the above, but maybe introduce yourself first, and then we can kind of go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm Laura Fiddler. I'm the CEO of Energy Funders, formerly with Anadarko and a couple private equity portcos, and then made my way over to Energy Funders a little bit earlier this year.
What do you guys do?
We have the world's largest online platform designed for energy investment. So we select oil and gas properties for people to buy working interests in. And we most recently launched our $25 million yield fund. So we're trying to get people to invest in the yield fund so we can start to return capital to folks and get some of these wells. There's a combination of PUDs and PDPs. So trying to get some of these wells drilled and trying to get some oil money into people's pockets.
Yeah. When you say yield fund, is that like lower risk, like maybe slightly lower return, but distribute cash back to investors, that type of structure?
Right. Yeah. So in the past, Energy Funders has typically done like wildcat funds. So they'd be drilling wildcat wells, but I'm a geologist and I understand the risk associated with doing a wildcat well.
Sure.
I mean, typically with a conventional, for example, a conventional wildcat exploration well, you have a 30% chance of actually producing oil. That's not even taking economics into it. So the plan with the new fund is to decrease your concentration risk. We're not drilling wildcat wells. We're not drilling exploration wells anymore, or buying working interest. Actually, we don't pay for any of that stuff. It's just the working interest. So we are going to drill PUDs and PDPs, which for people who don't know, those are wells that are either producing already or are one well bore off of another well bore. So really decrease your risk of that, problems happening and all that kind of stuff. Make sure we vet the operators, and then we're doing a collection of wells this time instead of a one-off, just to make sure that your rate of return is distributed. You don't have the risk of missing one or anything like that. So that's a new model.
So she came on the podcast I was previously on, and the best way, the coolest thing that I found about it was like, the concept is not new. You know what I mean? There in other, like real estate, for example, they have like all these different crowdfunding things, platforms for real estate, and this is the first one for oil and gas. And I'm excited. I think it's a great idea because it's like, I mean, obviously there's like tax benefits and like rate of returns and all that stuff. But on the surface level, of course that's the most important part. But on the real level, it's like
no big deal.
I know, like, I love our industry. Obviously, we all do. We all love our industry. And I think what I dig about it is, like, there's no other way to say, invest in our industry, invest in our community. You know what I mean? That's, to me, I mean, that's I think that's one of the coolest parts about it. It's like, you're not doing this weird thing where, you know, you're buying Conoco or buying whatever, buying this. This is like, you're investing in an oil and gas well. And what person in the oil and gas industry doesn't want to say, or Texan doesn't want to say, I got a couple of oil and gas wells, I'm an investor. And so anyway, I just think it's kind of cool just supporting the industry and the community. So that's just my plug.
Yeah, from a macro perspective too, we kind of are a perfect storm, right? There's been so much capital leaving the sector because of the ESG movement.
Right.
And we all saw what happened at Exxon and BP, I guess, last week. All kinds of stuff is happening. And then you have all this money leaving the sector, and there's all these wells that need to be drilled. We need to bring production forward. A lot of companies are out there who want to go drill their wells and maybe don't have the capital to do so. So we're trying to connect the investors to those folks so that we can get good wells drilled and actually make our investors some pretty good rates of return.
How did you get into this project? What was the genesis of how you got?
So I was previously with a private equity sponsored portfolio company.
Okay.
And we were based on the Powder River Basin. We had 98% federal acreage.
Sure.
And so when the administration changed, I recognized...
No audio. All right. We got my boy, Bryson Barner, listening in. Love you, dude. Yes, sir. Okay, so y'all can hear us. Okay, so
Cool.
you framed the question of the genesis of this.
Yeah. How did the energy funders start? You said you were working in the PRB at a Portco for a private equity company, and that's kind of where you left off.
Yeah. So Energy Funders has been around for quite a while, actually. And like I said before, they were doing primarily wildcat wells and, you know, higher risk, higher reward types of stuff. So while I was at the Portco, I recognized that the face of energy is shifting quite a bit, and we weren't going to probably be able to develop our acreage the way we wanted to with the federal leasing ban.
Yeah, so 90%
98% fed. So, you know, writing was kind of on the wall, and then I got a call from these guys, the principals over at Energy Funders acquired it last year. And so I have a connection with them because they're oil and gas guys. So I was talking to them, and they called me. It was very weird timing, but they called me and they asked me to hop over and come be the CEO. And, you know, I recognize that there's a lot of issues with the private equity space. You know, it's hard to make money as an LP in that space now, just because the build and flip model doesn't necessarily work.
Right.
And they're taking so many fees off the top and back ends and all that.
Sure.
Same thing with big oil. Like, if you're going to invest on the street, like, you just, returns are typically destroyed by, you know, whatever big oil is going to go do. So there's a niche spot where you can actually make some money as an investor utilizing some of these things that Energy Funders is doing. And the business model is super compelling to me. I think it's got legs, and we're just trying to make it, you know, really hit home. So we've got some really good wells that we're including in the current yield fund. It's been really fun to kind of go through all those and like check them out as a geologist. And we've got a reservoir engineer, Ginny Light, who's fabulous too. So we just go check out all the wells and make sure we like them. And we're partnering with really good operators who we know personally typically. So
as a non, basically you're, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. And so what's the platform for the investors? Like, is there
a website? It's super easy. You just like type in energyfunders.com, you click through, you sign up, and then you go in, and it's just like, you know, a Cadre or a Fundrise or something like that. Like several clicks of the button later, you're part owner in a bunch of oil wells.
Yeah. Can people see where, like, what these wells are and where they're located and all that stuff? Like, so people have knowledge. Thank you.
Yeah.
I try to ask a good question. So people can actually understand, like, so people can go in and kind of see where, you know, where the wells are located, what's the operational side of it.
Right. Yeah. So JP brings up a good point. A lot of our investors are either loosely associated with oil and gas or have experience investing in oil and gas. And for example, we had an investor reach out and ask for the API list for all the wells the other day, and we're happy to provide that kind of information. We've got all the declines out there, all that kind of stuff. So you can, if you really want to, you can, like, it's basically like owning your own little oil company. You can go look at the well logs and stuff. We put it all out there and on the platform itself. So we have a Dropbox where we stash all the data. So if you want to really dig in, you can go to the Dropbox and dig up the data, or the platform has these one-page summaries for all the wells that we've kind of run through the economics and very little about the geology, because most people fall asleep when I start to talk about it.
What about like risk management stuff? Do you guys, is there hedging involved? Is there, how does like the
That's all up to the operator.
It is.
Right. So, you know, we haven't really put that into any of our decisions yet. That's partially because of the outlook on oil price.
Sure.
But we should probably talk about that at some point.
Yeah.
But since we're non-op, it's, we don't really have control over that.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Well, what about, I don't know. I think that's a pretty good summary on the energy funder stuff, but why Bitcoin 2021?
Why am I
why
here?
are you at the Bitcoin? Besides we're in Miami
mojitos.
Beach, it's really, really nice and gorgeous.
For the hashtags.
I'm here for the hashtags and the mojitos. No, I think so. I wanted to talk to you about this. It's really interesting. There's a very large intersection between crypto and oil and gas right now. Part of it is the flare mitigation stuff that's been happening mostly in the Rockies, a little bit down here. We're in Florida, not in Texas.
Over here.
In Texas.
Yeah.
So my interest in Bitcoin first peaked when at my former group, we started using a flare mitigation unit to make sure that we weren't releasing, our flare gas into the atmosphere. And it was really interesting. And I had started to talk to some folks about doing like stranded gas projects. It's been around for a little bit of time. And so we've got the parent company level at Energy Funders has some wells that are stranded gas wells. And so I'm out here looking for units to pop down in South Texas. We've got a lot of offset operators who are also interested in using these sorts of things. And we can definitely put them to work. But it's interesting. Most of my experience with the Bitcoin, like the miners, the units, has been in the Rockies where there isn't an air conditioning problem and it's dry. So it turns out that putting the units down in Texas is problematic because of the humidity. Yeah, they've got the AC thing down, but the humidity seems to be a pretty big problem. So anyway, I talked to a couple people about it yesterday. It sounds like there's some ways around it. It just increases your capital exposure a little bit. So that's fine. And then also I think we are on Energy Funders platform now accepting payment in Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I think it's an interesting place where if people are concerned about the risk associated with the price of Bitcoin, you can convert that over to an oil and gas portfolio and be achieving 10 to 25% rates of return regularly instead of who knows what's happening.
So sell the dip.
Yeah, sell the dip.
Exactly. Well, it's crazy because it's like Bitcoin's really just energy. They convert it into Bitcoin, and then you're saying convert it back into potentially into energy or into extracting more energy. So and for me, from a personal perspective, I found the Bitcoin ESG problem really interesting too. Kind of hearing about that and learning about that, it feels like oil back in the 90s when people were like, "Oh no, this is a problem for us," and the energy consumption side of Bitcoin is pretty fascinating. So I like that we're sort of mitigating all of that when oil and gas uses the miners, but there is that sort of overarching kind of problematic thing that's been written about a lot lately. Yeah, people were putting a lot of news out there about the energy consumption, and did not know much about Bitcoin like 6 months ago. And I've just gone like deep into the rabbit hole, like reading about it and like learning about it. Yeah, it's been just like it's been about 6 months, and I've been just like hardcore, just trying to figure it out. And what to me is the elegant and interesting part is that the energy consumption really just, that's what makes it work. Like when Satoshi, I'm going to go, down the Bitcoin rabbit hole here, but when he designed it, like he was trying to solve the Byzantine generals problem, or he or she, when they were trying to solve it, it was trying to solve the Byzantine general problem, which is this problem where you have a network and it's like, how do you reach consensus, and how do we know that these transactions are real transactions that are building the blockchain? And the way that he answered it was proof of work, which is energy consumption. It's this unforgeable scarcity. Like you can't forge it. It's like mining for gold. Like you have to expend the energy, and without that, it's really not Bitcoin. And so all these other things that you hear about, like the different coins and the proof of stake, which is just kind of pledging money towards it, right? Like they're trying to get around. It's a bunch of other people that are trying to say, okay, we like what proof of work did, but how can we make it better? And like, I don't know that anyone's really, I think these other methods are just kind of, they're not answering the problem that they're trying to answer. And so a lot of people are talking bad about the energy consumption, but at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is. That's like what makes it work. And so it's really interesting to me.
It is super interesting. I mean, the whole like history of Bitcoin's fascinating too. It's just so.
When did it start?
2009, 10. Yeah. So it's about just like a little over a decade
old. Yeah. And nobody really knows anything about the origins. Like you'll ask people and they're like, oh yeah, Satoshi and this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, but he's a mystery.
Really?
He. It's a mystery. Yeah, it's crazy. It's really interesting.
Well, Max, so for example, so that's what Energy Funders do. I know that I guess I didn't know that was 6 months. That's
just learning about it. I mean,
that's crazy.
Well, it's because like in what I do with Ankova is we're trying to get our clients the best price for their product, and then hearing that there's a way to get 1,000% higher than Henry Hub, potentially converting it into Bitcoin. You're like, well, that's something that I need to understand because this is what affects what I do.
That's exactly right.
And so anytime there's something that's disrupting in the marketplace, especially when it comes to what I do, I'm like, I want to understand what this is about, because if this is going to change things, then I want to know how it's going to change them. And so for me, it was learning about it and understanding all the nuances. And the mining is really complicated. It reminds me of a lot of energy drilling wells because there's like high capex involved. Yep. It's cyclical. The price changes. Actually, the difficulty changes with the Bitcoin network. So there's all these different levers. And it's not this straightforward calculus. It's actually kind of complicated. And that's exciting to me because I'm like, this is new and it's different.
I want to figure it out.
Yeah, I want to figure it out. So that's been kind of
so that's, I mean, that's the oil and gas side of it. So, but we're in Miami for the conference. So what kind of, I guess, because this is my first actual full day being here. So what kind of, I guess, topics are discussed at a Bitcoin conference? I mean, obviously, I'm not sure if it's oil and gas or not, but I mean, what kind of speakers and all that stuff?
The speakers were good yesterday. I mean, they had Jack Dorsey with Twitter on, and he said some pretty powerful stuff. You know, he basically said if he thinks Bitcoin's the most important thing he's worked on in his career, and that if he given the choice, he would probably quit Twitter and Square. Or if he didn't have that going on, is the way he phrased it, he would be focused on this full time. And he's talking about all the public benefit of just the banking, you know, bringing banking or not even banking, but bringing that access to capital and banking and to the world that doesn't have it. And I think that a lot of the people that criticize Bitcoin, and this is a lot of the speeches yesterday, we're talking about this, the people that criticize it, it's like, this isn't providing a good to society and it's using all this energy. And what they're saying is, well, that's a very privileged, like you're able to go to an ATM or you're able to go to your bank account, open up a bank account. Like you don't have to worry about your government, like debasing the currency and like all this negative things happening to you. If you're in Nigeria or one of these other countries that's really starting to pick up using Bitcoin,
Venezuela, right?
Yeah, Venezuela, these countries where the value of their currency is being devalued and they don't have access to banking and the government can do these things. It's like, this is a good to society. And so there was a lot of talking about that yesterday. There's a lot of like the DeFi, so digital finance space. There's a lot of applications around crypto. And this is specifically a Bitcoin conference. You kind of get, they don't want you talking about the other coins here. This is very focused on like, they don't, I mean, yes, we say crypto, but I think this conference specifically, they want to talk about Bitcoin. But there's all these other applications, like they've got the Lightning Network, which is going to make transactions easier. You can stream, like, so for example, there's a group that's called Sphinx Chat where like content creators can get on there and people can, instead of like paying a subscription or something, they log on and they can stream you in real time, like Satoshis, which are the smallest increment of Bitcoin. So they can stream you like Bitcoin live, like while you're talking, like we could be doing this.
Really?
You can see on the screen. Like,
should have opened it up.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And it's like small amounts, like they're like fractions of pennies, but it's still, you know, it could be the future and it's instant and you're cutting out the credit card fees and all the middlemen. And so
it's pretty cool. And then like, the one problem that I've had with the conference is how crazy it is. It's a little poorly managed.
They were apologetic. I felt almost bad for the workers.
Are you talking about actual getting in the conference?
Yeah, it was like blocks and blocks of a line. They could not get people in.
So tell me, so obviously being oil and gas industry, Max, I saw your tweet yesterday. Laura, we talked yesterday. Obviously for a conference, we're used to oil and gas conferences.
Yeah.
Right? We're used to booths, tables, walk around the bag, get a koozie, and a pen, and a little mouse pad, and you actually talk about what's going on. Apparently, it's a different feeling.
Fanny packs.
Yeah, you get
neon fanny packs.
Well, I get that, man.
Aviators. Oh no, not aviators. Those like white
sunglasses, right?
So it's like a music fest kind of.
It's very music fest feeling. But it was interesting because you kind of make it through the line.
What we got?
I was promised this would be on the beach.
Me too. This is messed up.
That's where we're going afterwards.
Yeah, we're going after a little follow-up scene.
But it was crazy in there, and I couldn't even get into the room to watch any of the talks. I sat outside and sweated the whole time. It was terrible. But I heard a bunch of people complaining about it and asking for refunds, and I felt bad for the workers too. Which is like it's sort of a bummer. But I wonder if they shouldn't split it off and have like a Bitcoin professional conference and then a Bitcoin enthusiast conference. That's more like
they just need to make it easier for people. I mean, like, honestly, like the way that the stages should have been set up, I think outside were more of like a music festival where it was just like a big field where everybody could hear it because they had them in these rooms, which I'm sure the sound quality is better and it's like better audio visual. but these little tiny theaters, and you've got tens of thousands of people there wanting to get in, and they were broadcasting everything outside, and that's what felt like a music festival, because you guys people like, there's like bars set up and everyone's hanging out, people like with beers and watching these screens on the stages, but it's not cold here in Miami.
No, it's not.
It was like
really
I wore
hot
jeans and I was just like, it was terrible.
I committed to this. This is what I'll always wear in Miami. Okay.
Yeah,
I committed to this, and like after walking around like last night when it was like a warm 81, I'm like, you just got to go with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah.
But the conference itself was cool. So there was a lot of different types of booths, different than oil and gas. I mean, you had everything from like a video game area where people with like VR headsets were like laying on all these things. And then you had like a Playboy booth. You had like watch booths, like a Rolex booth.
Really?
Just like all
the
kinds
NFT
of interesting.
art area was really cool.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. That was pretty interesting.
There was a skateboarding, like a half pipe, and like a guy skateboarding on it, like outside. Man. Tony Hawk was there. I didn't see Tony Hawk. But
who was staying at your hotel?
Yeah, apparently Logan Paul, his posse, we saw them out front here. This hotel is like, we're at the Faena, and it is, I didn't realize like how nice this thing was. Like, we just kind of heard recommendation from someone like, hey, you should stay there.
It's like a very 1920s.
It's got a cool vibe.
I have a proposal for you.
Yeah.
We'll leave our Roach Airbnb and just stay in this room.
Yeah.
We waited too long to book a hotel, and it's sold out.
Yeah.
It's sold out. So
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So this hotel is like pretty sweet, and just in general, the vibe, I feel like. So I don't know where the other conference, they've had it at the Bitcoin conference in other places.
I think
California typically, right?
Yeah.
I think it's almost always been in Cali, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think, or it was like San Francisco, and then it was going to be in LA, and then they pushed it to here.
It's a very cool vibe, like great gas fees a little bit. What's on your schedule for today?
You know, today I'm going to go at some point and probably go to the conference later, maybe.
Can you get in easily with that band now?
Yeah, I've got the band, so I don't know. You got the QR code for my ticket, so we'll see if they've got to scan that again. I don't know. They're saying today, they were tweeting out that it was going to be easier to get in.
Okay.
I assumed they would figure things out.
Right, yeah, I hope so.
So you're gonna go up to the conference?
Maybe. I mean, like that would be later. So there's like a couple panels. There's an oil and gas Bitcoin mining panel at like 3:30, I think, and it's going to be the Marty Bent with Great American Mining, and then Stephen Barber over at Upstream Data, which is another like Bitcoin mining, oil and gas. They use natural gas, and then there's a third guy on the panel. But it's going to be effectively talking about the stranded gas, the flare gas, and using it for mining. And so I know that was like the people I tried to hit up yesterday. I really tried to just go to the oil and gas focused booths, which there's not that many, but
no, there are hardly any.
I was like, the oil and gas guy handing out. I feel like nobody has cards in the Bitcoin world.
I handed out cards too.
It must be
like the oil and gas.
Yeah, I was like, this is like oil and gas.
Well, what do people hand out?
Nothing.
They're like, people are like, do you have a Twitter?
Or QR
like, people were like introducing themselves with their Twitter handles. Yesterday.
Really?
No joke. They were like, oh, I'm whatever on Twitter. I'm at this on Twitter. Just like follow me or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
it's crazy.
send me a DM on Twitter. Like that's like.
The other one I heard a lot about was Telegraph.
I haven't heard of
it. A lot of people were talking to me about Telegraph yesterday, and I guess it's like what's the one that you can message people in international places? WhatsApp. So apparently it's like WhatsApp but more secure, and so it's big in the like crypto world. Everybody's using Telegraph instead of like WhatsApp or texting. And I was like, okay. Obviously not in this world as much as you are. So
well, it's just like a more fun vibe. So that's the thing with me is that when I found out that oil and gas and Bitcoin had this touch point and that it was becoming more of a thing where you've got all this energy usage and we've got really cheap and very clean, I think, with natural gas energy in the US, it's abundant. And it makes a lot of sense for Bitcoin mining for a lot of reasons. And so then when I found out that these worlds were coming together, I got excited because I was like, most of the stuff, because Bitcoin's such an up and coming, like, it's like this, it's kind of like the internet in the late 90s and it's really taking off.
It's center stage now.
Right. It's becoming like this thing. And so anytime in oil and gas, it feels like we're very much in this industry that's getting beat up all the time. Right. It's just like nothing's positive. There's no positive news around it. It's all negative news. This last election cycle, I would tell people, I was like, no matter who your, politics are, I was like, it just feels weird to have like your occupation being like a mainstream.
You're a villain.
Yeah, like it's like a mainstream
talking point. I didn't come into this industry to be a villain.
No, I joked about it last night because I went to a dinner with a lot of people in the Bitcoin world, and they're like, oh, oil and gas. It's like a very novelty. They're like, what are you doing here? Like, an oil and gas guy.
Too. It's weird.
And
this is actually huge for us.
And I'm telling them about it, and I said, being in our industry is like if you invented, I'd be like, you have a product that more people use than Google or Facebook, and everybody hates you though.
Yeah.
It's like everybody uses your product and service like more than any other thing out
and they
there.
don't even realize.
And they don't even realize they're using it,
Yeah.
and then they just like villainize you, and they were laughing. They're like, "Wow, that's crazy." Like I never really thought about it because like people don't like the oil and gas world is not like humanized well. Like I don't think that
we have a PR problem.
there's a huge PR problem.
I think that's the point of these type of podcasts, though, that you and I did.
Right.
It's to create the human aspect, to not have the stereotypes of the engineer, like not the big villain Texas hat, like destroy the environment.
Yeah.
I love my cargo shorts though, like.
Well, no, but exactly. But that's the thing.
Go
though,
on the field and lick rocks.
Through everything, I guess through this the past 16 months in the oil and gas industry with stuff like this podcast, Talk Energy podcast. I think it's bringing a certain level of the personal side of our industry. And honestly, if one person that doesn't understand us listens to it, and they're like, oh, okay, well they're like my neighbors. They're not so bad. They're like me. So I think it's every little I guess positive communication we can do in our industry helps.
Well, and I'm from Boulder, Colorado.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
is my wife.
So growing up, actually, so when I became a geologist and entered into the oil industry, I had a lot of people, friends of family kind of things happening where they were like really looking down on me. And so it was interesting. I really basically had to come up with a talk track about like, why am I doing this? Why is it okay? Like what products they're using.
Right.
You're driving your Tesla, but like, do you understand your Patagonia comes from X, Y, and Z? And, figuring out how to communicate with people like that was really interesting and kind of a problem initially. But once you kind of overcome that and you really appeal to their human side, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
So Patrick Nash had a comment about Elon Musk. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I already asked about it.
Oh, you don't have to read it. It's live. You don't have to.
I'm just very appreciative. Yeah. I mean, like,
I can't decide if
what is
the Bitcoin world. No, I can't decide if people in the Bitcoin world love the guy. You know what I mean? Because like everything he does, like it fluctuates everything. So you get this head guy right now that's just constantly messing with it, good or bad.
Yeah.
So where does he stand in the Bitcoin world? You say people hate him. What's your general, feel?
Well, I think that Elon is misguided in a lot of his commentary on Bitcoin. I mean, I don't think he really. I think he's a smart guy, but he does things, that says things, and puts things out there that I don't think are well informed. And it's like
well, he's just trying to pull market share away in Dogecoin. Well,
I mean, like, so
ridiculous.
Elon. So there's this really interesting comparison that I did the other day. I listened to a podcast on it, and one of my guests we talked about the other day, and it was I've really been trying to look at the energy transition. I've been looking at the original energy transition when everybody switched to fossil fuels, and I look at like a Rockefeller or somebody who held the title of the wealthiest man on the planet, which is Elon. Elon has held that title too. And then I look at how they got that wealth. And if you look at Elon, and I know he's not now because Tesla stocks dropped a little bit, but look at like Elon's peers. It's like top 5 guys that are around him, like the Jeff Bezos or the Larry Page or Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. And these guys have all created products and services that we all use every day. Like, I mean, you can't, like, we're on a Microsoft, we're using a Windows computer. We have iPhones on the table.
Yeah, now go back to a flip phone.
Yeah, I Googled how to stream on LinkedIn Live. So, like, everything that those guys have done to build this wealth has been through this capitalism, right? People want to use it. And then you look at Elon, and really, he's not had, other than PayPal, when he exited that 20 years ago, he's not had a profitable business. And really, his businesses are primarily subsidized or tax credits based, right? So he doesn't have a product or a service that everybody's using, but he's still somehow the richest guy on the planet. And it's all kind of on the back of like this fiat system, if you talk to the Bitcoiners, where he's getting government-based money and they can print it and they're using tax credits and all these things. And so I think when Bitcoiners look at that, it's like he wants to push this narrative. I think he likes this green narrative, obviously, because he maybe views Bitcoin as another target for him to sell credits to. It's a way for him to, so he talks about how dirty they are. That's another way for him to make money on selling Tesla credits, So that's a cynical way to look at it. But I think that a lot of the people in the Bitcoin world, you've had these kind of billionaires along the way, and I don't know all the history, but that have kind of tried to be this spokesperson, and then at some point have turned on the community, and the community is very wary of like any large centralized, high-powered figure that wants to influence Bitcoin. They're kind of like, no, this is for the people. It's decentralized. So I think he's done more harm lately than good. I think it was interesting when Tesla said they were going to hold it on their balance sheet, and then they were going to let people use it, and then he flip-flopped, and the price, it was caused the price to drop. So
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people are very happy with Elon Musk right now in the
that's-
Bitcoin
that's
world.
That was a weird flip flop.
Yeah, it was strange. I think like, so there's a lot of like stuff going around on Max is spot on. Yeah, I mean, basically like there's a lot of stuff going on where there's rumors around his credits and like the tax credits, and like there's some pressure that some of that may go away, that revenue. I think he was selling a lot of his credits like Fiat Chrysler and like one other company, and that revenue's drying up, and he's, you know, there's ulterior motives, I think, to what he's doing. But at the end of the day, like if Elon wants to be, and really to tie it back to energy, like if you want to be the energy transition, you got to create products and services that better people's lives. It's like everybody moved to a gas powered car because it was a better product. They could carry the fuel with them, and it lifted, you know, people wanted to use kerosene. They weren't able to light their homes. And so like Rockefeller had all these products and services that like lifted poor people up, brought people out of poverty, increased jobs, like did all these things, lowered the cost of energy too.
And then he also kind of like, back then, wasn't like different types of, propane or whatever that was, like wasn't like the standard. There was no standard. So some were highly combustible. So he kind of actually put some safety measures on them also.
Vertically integrated. He like did all the refineries, and he really made I don't know that he ever used the words vertical integration, but he was kind of the pioneer of vertical integration, like, you know, standardizing and getting everything from the source to the end users. And by the way, during his career, from when he started to when he retired, the price of his products dropped like 90%.
Yeah.
So like kerosene was selling for 90% less because he was so good at it. He was so successful. And so that's why so many disadvantaged and people in poverty will use fossil fuels to pull themselves up. So when I look at the current energy transition, like we have to switch to something or move to technologies or products that are better for people, that are helping their lives, that everybody's going to use every day.
You had a good tweet about that.
Yeah.
Yesterday or this morning?
A couple of days.
It was very interesting.
To me, that's like, when I think about the energy transition, like it's great to be better and cleaner, but we have to create something that's a better product.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
And a better price for the
better product and a better price.
It should be realistic though. I mean, that's the thing, it'd be realistic. Just because it says green and renewable doesn't mean it's completely clean and there's no mess. It's just like,
that's the problem.
It's the narrative, it's the branding.
With like the Tesla thing or EVs is the mining for rare earth materials is so intense on the earth. It's like, you know, you're really just replacing one bad thing for another.
Yeah.
But it's not our backyard.
No, exactly.
Right.
And well, it might be soon. There's a couple big mines that have been approved in the U.S. There's one in California and a new one in Wyoming that they're talking about. So,
well, it is our backyard.
But, it should be like, I'd rather move all of our energy sources local. You know, I think that's a better way to do it too.
Well, there's certainly an E, an S, and a G. And I think that focusing on the social impacts of, and so not just the environmental, but social, like in China, like a lot of the labor, there's like rumors that it's like bad. Slave labor, you know, they're using like prison labor to like mine a lot of these, especially for the solar panel side. And so like everybody just needs to, I think that the renewables space is getting a bit of a pass because there's such a hard push to go to there. But I think over time, and I'm sure there'll actually be companies and industries built around this, is that they're going to need to have governance around where it's being sourced. Is it actually cleaner? You know, I made the comment before, if you're selling a medicine that's supposed to cure something, like we should grade you on if it's curing that thing.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just like,
instead of just saying,
this is good. And then people buy into it, but it's not actually doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's crazy.
And so, I mean, I think it'll get there. I'm not as, you know, I get back to it has to be a better product. It has to help society and people. And if it does those things, that's great. And if it's cleaner, that's great. But let's make sure that we're not just doing it to do it.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's a big problem.
Right. But what about, you guys, what's the rest of today and what's the takeaways? What are you going to get back to the conference? And then,
I think we're going to go back over there. I did want to see that panel, the oil and gas panel too. I've got some buddies, actually a couple business partners of mine from my old Portco days, left to go start a Bitcoin mining group. So they're around. I want to go find them and just generally check it out. And then
tagging up with Mike Tesseri, the Iron Orchard, good buddy of mine. He's here with his wife, and they're about to go to Bahamas, I think. So I'm going to tag up with him and just kind of visit with him because they do some. Yeah.
Oil and gas should have a bigger presence here.
I think so too. We were supposed to have a booth, and then the booth sold out like 2 seconds before I pushed the button.
Yeah.
So
I think that they should have a bigger. I mean, at the end of the day, this. Back to kind of tying it together, like proof of work is really just energy consumption. We are in the business of energy, right? So we should have a seat at the table with the Bitcoin world. I think ultimately there's so much, my thesis is that there's so much money being made I say money being made. Mining you can lose money too, right? I'm saying it's highly capital intensive to do it. I'm not saying everybody's crushing it on the mining. It's cyclical, and the machines are expensive. So I don't want to oversimplify that everybody's just making lots of money mining.
Right.
It's a difficult business, but there's a lot of rent there, I guess. And so right now you've got this huge. Especially if you're on grid, like how many billions of dollars between you and the energy source?
Oh yeah.
There's this huge capital stack between using the energy at the Bitcoin miners. If you're pulling it off the grid, like if you're in Texas, a lot of guys are on ERCOT. You're pulling it off the grid. They're paying the peak. They're playing the peak demand game, and maybe they're selling back to the grid. So there's some reasons why they're on it. But if you look at it, like everybody between you and that energy source has to get fees and has to be paid. So ultimately, can you get it closer to the energy source, which would be more in the field at the nat gas level, like in the fields? And then I think that's cleaner because it's less wasteful. You don't have to send it on all these pipelines. You don't have to send it on the grid. It's also, I think there's a cleaner narrative, and I think it makes too much sense to go off grid, I think, long term. And if that's the case, then energy producers, specifically natural gas producers, are probably going to this is going to be a thing, I think, into the future that plays a bigger role.
So actually something I had brought up with you yesterday was why isn't there a Bitcoin conference in Houston, right? So we talked about trying to do like something hosted at the Petroleum Club that's intended to connect, Bitcoin folks with oil and gas folks, and actually make that like a regularly occurring event.
Well, we were discussing that conference or a social or something.
Yeah,
the oil and gas community,
and it's becoming
another networking,
a much bigger deal too over time. Like we used a unit I think I mentioned up in the Powder River for a while, maybe 2 years ago, and it was hard to find the unit, and then we had to share it with somebody, and it was this whole thing. But now it's just like those things are turnkey, and people are becoming a lot more aware of it. I've got some buddies who work at Exxon, and they're like very, very aware of it.
Well, I will say this, and this is maybe a little bit, I don't know if this is, but I've heard people say that if you're a fiduciary, if you're a private equity group and you've raised money, or if you're at a C-suite at a big public company, and you have a fiduciary to your investors to do what's the most profitable, makes the most money, then you should be absolutely looking at this, because you can make more money than selling, potentially. Depends on how you do it.
Yeah, the capital exposure, right?
Right, the capital exposure, but there is an opportunity to get a much higher value for your product. And if that's out there, then you owe it to your investors and your shareholders to investigate that. So oil and gas needs to get smarter on it. And I think that they will, just because there's too much momentum with Bitcoin.
So for example, our most recent fund, the $25 million fund we're trying to get raised right now, we have a special carve out for Bitcoin mines because we recognize the value of those and we want to provide that to our investors, right? We can, if we buy these mines and put them on these wells, we can, make a lot more money for you than if we don't. So it's kind of interesting, but I think you're right. I think it's people are starting to get more into it.
I love that JP went full Vice.
You take go full
I don't
Vice.
Understand. Like, why wouldn't I? Like, that's my thing. Like, why would I not go full Vice in Miami? Yeah. And I have been rocking the Miami Vice 1984 to 1990 soundtrack for the past 2 days. So I dig it.
Prepped.
John Zimmer, the intro. Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, it's good. I've been linen pants the whole time.
Linen Miami.
Linen pants.
You gotta do it.
It was so hot yesterday. I was like,
it was ridiculously hot. So I'm gonna try to get back over there. I think I want to get to the beach maybe a little bit today too. So I'm gonna try to do some of that.
Do another one of those. Water poses.
You think that was funny? There's just so many, like, that seems to be like a popular picture that girls post of like them laying at the beach with like their legs and their drink or whatever.
Like mood,
and I
vibe.
Talked to my wife yesterday and I was like, am I doing this right? Is this how you're supposed to post? This
is
how you're supposed to post pictures from the beach? And she was like, don't post that.
I think that's exactly what you're supposed to do.
And I was like, I'm posting it. And I got made fun of a lot.
Well, this is a great first. I had fun this first live stream. I think this is pretty cool.
Man. It's good. I want to do more. I mean, we got the LinkedIn Live set up. I've never done it, and I've been wanting to do it, but I had to find an excuse. I've also been wanting to collaborate with you, JP. So I'm glad that we got to do this. This is a cool way to do the first collaboration.
I dig it.
Because we've been talking about doing something, and
we'll chat after this.
I'm not in Houston, so it's hard for me to always get to.
Where you at?
I'm in Oklahoma City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got a lot of FOMO with all this stuff in Houston going on. There's just always events and there's always stuff. There's all these podcasters that are like having, people in their studio, and I've got a little studio that I've set up. It's just it's in my man cave. It's kind of funny. I need to I did it during COVID. So it was like, I don't want to set it up at our office.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I just was recording stuff and I was like, I'll just have it. I've got this detached garage that it's temperature controlled. So I made like a little man cave podcast studio out there. But now it's
Awesome.
weird because I'm like having to have people come to my house. I'm like, just come out to the suburbs to my house and record. So at some
How
point,
far out from Oklahoma City?
it's about 15, 20 minutes. I'm right off the highway, so it's not like too bad.
Okay.
And it's probably like 20. If you came from like downtown, probably 20, 25 minutes.
Okay.
But it's, it's not terrible. But I've had a couple there. And then at some point, I think the goal would be to have one like at my work office, have a studio just set up there too, to be able to just go up there and have people and
You don't need much.
make it. You don't need much, no. I kind of went overkill with all the podcast equipment and stuff just because I was like, I want to. Well, number one, I was nervous, and I've said this before on here. I was like nervous about doing it, and I just thought, well, it was a way to procrastinate starting it. So I was like, I got to buy another microphone before I can make this happen. Yeah. And then also it was a way to make me feel better because I was like, well, if I sound bad, at least it looks good because I've got a good camera.
And also, people ask about podcast equipment and stuff like that. It's like, don't analysis paralysis it. Just pick something and go with it.
You could use like a cell phone and do a podcast or live stream, right?
We're doing we're walking around, we're doing these street interviews and all that stuff, and we got these little clip-on mics that we just plug into the phone and just go from there. We just did one about 15 minutes before we did
That's the other thing we're doing this afternoon. We're going to go back over to the conference and do like man on the street interviews with people.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do like a little vlog. So it's the other thing I've been getting kind of nerdy into is like some video editing, and like I'm trying to film and then put together like a little montage at the end where it's kind of like I know, like some kind of little video montage at the end where it's just sort of like a Miami. I'm trying to find the perfect song has been the hardest part.
I know the perfect song, the Miami Vice theme song.
Yeah, but the problem is you can't post like anything. It'll take you down if it's like. So I have like this. It's like a music. It's like a Spotify, but it's all royalty free.
I've seen that.
Yeah, there's different ones. It's like stream whatever, and it's got royalty free music, and it's all kind of like. Meh. It seems like it's like from a car commercial or something.
Yeah.
Like everyone.
Salsa music.
Yeah, I know. I need to do something. But it was fun. I'm glad we got to do this together. It's nice to meet you for sure.
I don't understand why people eat dinner here at 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
Like I love Miami. Don't get me wrong. If anyone listens to Miami, but like that's like. I'm asleep for like 2 hours by 10:30.
I know.
And you were telling me last night people were going out to the club at 1 a.m.
we got to the hotel, and I don't know where they were going, but there were people dressed up, waiting on Ubers, like tons of people.
Well,
maybe they were leaving.
No, at Fontainebleau, Marshmallow was DJing, so that's probably it.
Is that place next to the apparently like the nicest condo in Miami? There's like a $55 million condo that's listed for sale. It's right next to the building right next to us.
Yeah.
No, this is the Fontainebleau, the Sinatra old little like. So I guess he was DJing.
Marshmallow was there?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, he's at Strawberry something today.
Like, how's the vibe here? Is like it's crazy. Like, all the stuff going on this weekend with like the Bitcoin conference, and then you've got the Logan Paul like Mayweather fight on Sunday, which I didn't realize was Sunday. I probably should have. Everybody's staying like Sunday night. I don't know if people were actually going to the fight, but a lot of people were just kind of making that like a thing too. And I don't know how long we can stay away from
our flights back. But
hey, I gotta get home and see my wife and daughter.
We have to stay in the Roach Hotel another night. I can't do
wife
it.
and daughter. No, I was worried about it. I was kind of like, man, should I wear this or not? And all that stuff. You walk around Miami, there's so many eclectic people here. I mean, there's people wearing baskets on their heads and like purple, pink, blue
hair. How cool is that area? Like the Wynniewood, like where the conference is at?
Yeah,
all this art everywhere, like graffiti everywhere. I've never seen something everywhere.
What was that fun little loungy place we went to
last
night? Oasis. We went and
like an outdoor thing.
Like food trucks, sort of, and then like a bar in the middle, and it was all outdoors, and they had a show that started.
The nightlife here in Miami is insane.
It's cool. It was really fun.
Food's good too.
Oh yeah, you can always find good
seafood.
Well,
thanks for having us on, man. I appreciate it, brother.
It was fun. First LinkedIn live stream.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in. All right, cool.
All right, we'll see you later.
Figure out
cases to solve.